Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Davis, and you are watching Conversations in Pop Culture. And yes, I am scandalous like an Ashley. No pun intended for my guest, but I do want to remind everybody that this episode is brought to you by my friends over at Pocket Jack Comics, and they are coming to local comic stores near you come March, April. And right now, you could check out some of their comics and the sexy comics they produce, which is Guinevere and the Divinity Factory and Palace of the Golden Princess at pocketjackcomics.com. And if you sign up for their email list, you get a free preview PDF copy to your email. And you could try it before you buy it, as well as in March and April, you could get those sexy variants because I did see them. And they are pretty sexy, those comics. So that's all I have to say about that, as well as my friends over on Kickstarter with Living Dead Girl, which is Jason Connolly and Greg Bo Watson. And they had a little issue with Dan Mendoza, but that's been addressed. So obviously, Living Dead Girl is a very popular book right now. And if you're a Greg Bo Watson fan, it's his first time in 20 years having input in designing a character. But enough about that, because I have with me comic creator Ashley Lance. So welcome to the show.
Thanks for being here. Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm very excited. Obviously, you followed me on Twitter, and then I saw your book, and obviously your campaign is live, and it's slowly going and slowly being dealt with, I guess, and getting funded. And it is the Unbreakable Agronauts, I would like to say, issue 1. I would like to say
Unbreakable
what it
Argonauts.
is. So how is it pronounced?
Argonauts.
Argonauts.
Yeah.
So we can't all be right all the time. But anyway, it is on Indiegogo. So what is the basic story so that we kind of catch everybody up? Some people might know it, some people might not know it. But what is the basic premise of your comic for everybody to be on the same page?
So the hope is for the book is really an introduction to this shared universe of kind of pulpy 1950s inspired superheroes. The story is actually kind of based around Len Wein's Giant Size X-Men #1, where they go out and they find the new heroes to go and save the old ones. This is a little bit different. You've got this kind of team of heroes who are really the heroes of their city. It's called Icarus City, and there's 7 of them. They all have unique skills, unique powers, and that kind of thing. And each of them sort of has their own different villains. So you got like how Superman has Lex Luthor and Batman has Joker and all that. And this is the first time they all come together, and they hatch a plan to. One of the characters, I won't give away who, but one of the characters has a unique power that will allow these villains to kind of resurrect one of their old associates. In the hope, because this kind of dead supervillain is like the big bad. He's like a Darkseid, not quite as powerful as Darkseid, but he's the guy where if he comes back, shit really hits the fan. And so the heroes try and get out to save their friends before the villains can resurrect this big bad guy.
Yeah, so let's actually dive into this, because superhero books are tricky to do in crowdfunding. And some people understand that and do okay with it. Other people struggle with it. And this is what is that like? Because it's tricky for a lot of reasons. Marvel and DC, have the Justice League, they got the Avengers, they got the X-Men, they have all these top heroes that everybody knows. And to create new heroes is complicated, on top of the idea, as well as you have to develop these characters. And when you're assembling a team, you have to figure out the right balance between who are the 7 or the 8 or the 9 on the team, and then who are their villains, and how do you make somebody not overpowered, and how do you make, I guess, equity, and how do you make me care? So what is that like for you? Because there is an art to it, and there's a reason why this is hard, especially with superheroes.
Yeah, so most of the heroes aren't. None of them are Superman levels of power. I think the most powerful character I have, his name is Thunder. He's sort of on the level of Owlman. So we're not talking the strength of 1,000 men. We're talking like the strength of 10 men, that kind of thing. I have like a speedster on the team. She's not like Flash levels of speed. She's more like faster than a cheetah, but not by that much. And so for me, the idea is all the heroes should be in this kind of 1950s. So the inspiration for the team was really you have you have the Justice Society in the 1940s, you have Justice League in the 1960s, and then after that you have like Teen Titans, and everyone kind of represents a different era. There weren't really many kind of conventional superhero teams of the 1950s. I mean, there's like Challengers of the Unknown, who's a team, but they're not really superheroes in the kind of classic sense. They're more like just a group of friends who kind of set out to fight monsters and go on adventures and that kind of thing. It's more my opinion of what a 1950s superhero team would have looked like. Playing into like the tropes of the 1950s. So we've got there's a talking gorilla on the team. There's like a jetpack kind of rocketeer kind of hero on the team. All that kind of stuff. And everyone on the team kind of works as a team, but they're also, like the Justice League, they'll work on their own as well.
So let's actually talk about that a little bit, because there's two things going on. Obviously, it's got kind of a pulpy golden age, sort of silver age feel to it, where I don't feel, from what I've seen of your book, that this is, modern age comics. Obviously, it's done in the modern age, but it doesn't have that vibe to it. And obviously, you kind of said it's a 1950s superhero team as well. So, it's got that feel to it, which also kind of allows you to do certain things in the book, I would imagine, and also prohibits you from doing other things. And so what is that like? Because people sometimes just want a good golden age comic story, or even maybe a early silver age story. And so what is that like? Because that's definitely where this book's vibe is in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really found it that much of a challenge in terms of what I can't do. I mean, I've always kind of gravitated towards the older stuff anyway. So, I mean, my favorite movies are things like Indiana Jones, Brendan Fraser's The Mummy, and so I never really approach writing with the need to write about modern things. There's a little bit of retrofuturism there, like how when you watch like Batman the animated series and you don't know if it's set in like the 1930s or the 1940s, but there's like a computer and it could really be anywhere and anywhere. And so so in the 50s there's a little bit of technology that maybe wouldn't come around until the 60s. Most of that is intended to kind of, so for instance, one of the characters is an inventor, and so he has the Harrier jump jet.
I don't know that.
So it's a jet that was made in the 1960s, but in this comic it was made in the 50s, and the point behind that was to kind of highlight how ahead of his time this character is. And so there's like a little bit of that. It's probably never going to be more than a decade ahead. I don't really plan on bringing much of the modern world into the 1950s beyond just a few years in the future.
So because what I like about this is that obviously people right now are gravitating, especially in comics, are gravitating to late 80s, early 90s right now. And people are going back saying Chuck Dixon's Birds of Prey. Obviously Chuck Dixon did Nightfall, things like that, Death of Superman and some stuff in the 90s with Marvel. And people are kind of going from that era to kind of 2005 Civil War like. And so there's a reason. I mean, we're obviously in 2024, but people are very much going back 20, 30 years right now in comics, because I don't know if you picked up a DC book or a Marvel book, but some of it's okay, but a lot of it isn't. And I think people are really missing the idea of, hey, I just want to pick up a book where it's pretty self-contained and it's got sort of what comics were 70 years ago. And I think that there's a real lack of that right now in the industry as far as storytelling, where I think everybody's trying to invent the next story, but they're missing the point of what comics were supposed to be. This is kind of like the vibe I get from your book. I'm not saying that it's perfect. I'm saying that it's touching upon that vibe.
Yeah, so I do read. There are some I have found that a lot of the decent kind of modern DC books are themselves set in the past. So, you know, you had like the Jeremy Adams, the Flash miniseries, you know, the Jay Garrick miniseries. You had like Jeff Johns come back and doing the New Golden Age, that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the main continuities at the moment are a bit too tied down to trying to feel modern. And I think it kind of loses the point because it's supposed to be escapism. It's not supposed to feel like it's real life. And I mean, I'm a big believer in writing the kinds of stories that you'd want to read if you were picking up your first comic and that kind of thing. And a lot of what really inspired me to making my own comic was things like Alan Moore's Tom Strong, you know, the old kind of a lot of the Rocketeer stuff. I don't know if you've read Dynamite's King's Watch. That was a big. The point there is they bring Flash Gordon, Mandrake the Magician, and the Phantom together and give them their own little kind of Justice League kind of story. And I thought, you know, why stop at just 3? Why not? Because they have a lot of licenses that will work for that. And I kind of thought, well, I'd really like to make my own version of this that goes a lot bigger and does a lot more. And so my hope is for this to be kind of like old school Justice League, where it's going to be. I would love for it to end up as an ongoing series where I can do, you know,
so I want to table that.
Yeah.
Let's actually dive into that a little bit because obviously you have a team.
Mm-hmm.
And there's many ways how you could build out a team. Obviously, DC, from a comic perspective, introduced Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, all these characters. And then they kind of created the Justice League. And I think, you know, Marvel, I don't know if Marvel did the Avengers first or if they had all these characters separate in the comics. But in the movies, Marvel did Captain America, they did Iron Man, they did a Thor movie, they did a Hulk movie, and then they did the Avengers. So obviously, and then DC kind of did all these characters, but then they did Batman vs Superman, and then they threw the Justice League, and they kind of had hints, pieces here and there that assembled it. But what is this like for you? Because you can easily break off these characters and do one shot for 2-issue arcs. And some people say, you know, you should start with, you know, building out your universe with these one shots, because I've seen people do that with their universes, or you could do the whole spectrum and then see what kind of sticks. And so what is this like? Because if you're going to build a universe, there's many ways how to do it, especially if you have a team of 7 characters or 9 or 8. I forget how many are on the team, but it's irrelevant, I guess, to the question in the temporary. But what is that like? Because clearly you have the main story, which is this one, and then you could easily break off pieces of it to fill in the gaps where you need to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, I mean, the big publishers kind of had the, I mean, starting out, they had the advantage where they had, you know, 10, 20 books running at the same time. And so you could put out a lot of those characters all at once in the same month if you wanted to. Obviously, for crowdfunding, it's the complete opposite. You really have to do more at once, I'd say, make a good impression with everyone, introduce everyone to all the characters. And then I think going forward, I mean, one of the big things for me was if I can show people a team of 7 up front, I can say to people, which one of these do you like the most? You know, which design do you like the most? Which character do you like the most? Who would you most be interested in reading more of in the future? And so, you know, that kind of does some of the work for me. And then my thinking is really going to be the format of, you know, like the Brave and the Bold. And so in the Brave and the Bold, you start out with the Justice League. Well, you don't start out with the Justice League story, but in issue 28, you have the Justice League story. And then from there on, it's like, you know, the next issue, it's Batman and just Wonder Woman. The next issue, it's Superman and Green Lantern. And then maybe 3 of them shot, maybe 4 of them shot. And so that's the plan, is to have this kind of series where, you know, there's no real rule to it. It's just maybe if this story feels like it should be these 2 characters, it's going to be these 2 characters. If the story after that feels like it should be 4 or 5 characters, it'll be 4 or 5. And then if I come up with another good team up story, then it'll be the whole team again.
So let's actually talk about that too, because this is interesting, right? Because you mentioned a few things. Obviously, if you throw 7 characters, it's kind of like throwing spaghetti at a wall, right? So I'm going to use a gun analogy, and hopefully we're all adults in the room. We all can handle it. Is that I think there's two approaches to comics. You could take a shotgun approach, which means you're trying to hit a wide surface, or you could take a sniper approach, which means you're trying to hit a small surface but a direct hit. And I think both have been proven to be very effective. But if you have a team of 7, you're saying, look, which of these 7 characters do you as my audience respond to? And I'm going to continue this story with a few issues, but then who am I going to spin off first? Because this is a business and you need to, obviously you're pumping money in and making comics and they're not cheap. And so what is that like for you? Because I think that's a part that sometimes people forget, is that it's great to hit and know I have the character. That's great, but that doesn't always happen. And so what is that like for you? Because I think you're touching upon something that a lot of creators maybe don't get, is that you might have to throw a bunch of things at a wall to see which one sticks, which then becomes your main, I guess, economic driver, for lack of a better word. And I hate to commodify this to business.
Yeah, I mean, making a team, the point was to have obviously 7 characters who I'd like to write, any one of them. If people came back and they said such and such character who maybe isn't my favorite is their favorite, it would still be a character I'd be happy to write. And so,
but there is the one that's going to make you money. I mean, that's the key, right? So it's kind of like we look at the Justice League and we know Batman is the money character right now for DC. And we know Superman makes money, and we can make an argument that sometimes Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, or the Flash make money, but we know Batman and Superman are making money for us. We know that when we look at the Justice League. Nobody comes to the Justice League for the Flash. I'm sorry. All you Flash fans, I'm sorry. But we come because we're curious how Batman and Superman are going to disagree and the other 5 are going to react. And with this team, we have a lot of different components. And so I don't know who's coming for who at this point. But if you're 5 issues in, we're going to have an idea that there's 2 or 3 characters that have opposing views. And then the other 4 or 5 of them, how are they going to react to the circumstance? Because that's really, I think, where team dynamics become interesting. And then I don't know if it's a golden age book, so I'm not going to put my next thought, but I think everybody knows where I'm going. If you watch my show enough, you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I mean, one of the ones that went live, one of the first things I did was try and get an understanding of where everyone was on the book, which characters spoke out to them the most. So one of the things I'm actually going to do is there's going to be a 6-page backup, and that I had a few scripts and to try and so I had 3 scripts, one for each of the 3 characters who I thought would be the most popular with people looking to read the book. And when I ran a poll, I realized I was pretty much on the money as to who everyone would like the most, which is the Jetpack Hero. And so he's going to be the one with his own 6-page little backup spin-off kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, one of the things I do in my spare time is I'll kind of think up storylines for the next story arc. And, one of the big challenges is really trying to figure out which characters go best together, who's going to have the most interplay and who's going to disagree and who's going to clash and all that kind of thing. And but also whose personalities complement each other the most, whose powers complement each other the most. And yeah, I mean, I would say the 2 or the 3 books that are most that have the biggest influence on me are The Brave and the Bold, World's Finest, and Justice Society. And so, if you read those books, there's no real, anyone can show up, any issue could be anyone's story, really.
So let's actually talk about that, because I think it's interesting. And if I'm to do a superhero story, I want to have 50 superheroes all under one banner. And what I would love to do, and I think this is interesting, I think even you could pull it off. Obviously, you started with 7, but I think it'd be very interesting if you have kind of a core character, right? And then that core character is around here or there or this, but then you have three heroes move in on this one, and then two of them leave, and then another two come in, and then they're going on missions. And what
Yeah.
starts happening is that you start cycling out a lot of heroes. But while you're cycling out heroes, you didn't kill anybody off. It's more along the lines where, because that's kind of what Justice League Unlimited was in many ways, that show. And I really liked it because, great, we get an episode with Booster Gold and Green Lantern. And so we have the core seven, and they're circling in and out, but then we get all these other heroes that get opportunities. And I think it's fascinating. And so I think you could really have a very interesting, universe if you even played it that way, where all of a sudden, if you got 25, 50 characters and you got the core seven, and then the core seven are somehow all involved, but then they're mentioning one of the main characters not even on screen, saying, man, me and him didn't agree on that mission that we just did, or this thing that we just stopped, or he wanted to kill him and I had to stop him. And he's trying to teach like the young rookie how not to kill, the supervillain. You could have a really interesting world. And so, I mean, because that's also what I get from your book, is that you could plug and play superheroes into your world from what I've seen of it. And I think it's so interesting. I really do.
Yeah, and I should mention, I actually have the universe as it stands at the moment actually takes place over not two timelines, but two points in time, or points in history. There's one world which is the kind of late 19th century, so 1880s, 1890s, and that's kind of a callback to the, like the Zorro and Monster Hunter type things. I just really, because one of my favorite series was Alan Moore's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, and I really wanted to have a Victorian era team of characters. For me, they're going to be more monster hunters. So they're going to be taking on like Dracula and werewolves and that kind of thing. And then the 1950s book, which is obviously not the modern story, but the modern for the universe. That's where everything's going to be carried on from. And yeah, I mean, I've got some character mock-ups that I haven't had drawn by anyone yet. I've just kind of scribbled them and come up with names for them and little backstories for them. Those will at some point probably show up. I don't want to do it. My only fear is if you make it too crowded, you end up at this point where if you want to have a story that features everyone, you can't really do it. So it'll probably be capped at like 13 or something at any given time. Just so that if I have a story and I want to have everyone come together and have it, you don't want to have anyone lost on the page, you know what I mean? You don't want to have anyone just kind of milling about doing nothing. You want everyone to be able to talk and you want everyone to matter. So I will introduce more characters, but it will be fairly limited still.
No, I mean, I get it, in which I think there's an art to having 50, 100, 200 characters in something, and then figuring out how to bring everybody in, bring everybody out. It's complicated, and it's not. I'm not gonna say that I have the answer on how to deal with that. And no, do I want to really deal with that. But I get it. But I also like having a huge pool. I'm a huge wrestling fan, and I think WWE has a huge talent pool. And when you have a huge talent pool of people and characters or wrestlers or whatever you're doing in life, that means you could have a lot of combinations that may not work or may work really, really well, or might have a mixed reaction that you didn't expect. But I do want to get into this issue a little bit further, and maybe a little bit more into the weeds a little bit, because obviously a lot's going on. And I think in the first issue, because I think the first, arc is 2 issues from my understanding.
Yeah.
What you're trying to do, kind of introduce the world, and I feel like you're testing the market a little bit. I think the first issue is introducing the team and introducing the quote unquote mission and circumstance they're in, and dealing with this enemy and their respective villains and kind of formation of the team. And then issue 2, which sort of wraps up, I guess, the first arc, is dealing with that, them coming together, and then them dealing with said villains or villain or stopping something. So what is that like? Because having two issues for your first arc, it's not a bad idea, because it's obviously cost cheaper. It's a complete story, and you're kind of testing, I feel, and I've already said this, but you're testing a market to see what worked, what didn't work, and how this is being done. And there's a start and a finish to this thing with this, and then you can kind of stack up other stories on top of this.
Yeah, so I will say I'm very open to feedback. If anyone looks at the what I put out so far and wants to tell me what they think, tell me which characters they like or what they're excited about, what they're not excited about, I'd absolutely love to hear it. It was so it's going to be 2 chapters. The first story, or the first issue, is going to be the villains kind of hatching their plan, and then the climax is going to be a couple of the heroes get kidnapped and everyone's kind of left in disarray, and they have to pick themselves up and dust themselves off and get out there. And then issue 2 is going to be the remaining 5 coming together, and they're going to unveil their they're going to have like a, like the X-Men have the jet, and so they're going to have their own little kind of their own little, not a jet, but like a little ship that can fly up and that kind of thing. They're going to head out, and you're going to see some cool stuff in issue 1. Then you're going to see a lot more cool stuff in issue 2. Issue 1, I'm very not to sound too not to brag, but I'm very proud of how much we crammed into issue 1 without it feeling. It doesn't feel bloated, and it doesn't feel. There are no boring moments, but it's also not. It doesn't feel forced. Everything going on serves a purpose, and everything's worth reading. And yeah, never a dull moment in the first issue or the second issue.
Because I think it's interesting, right? Because I mean, let me ask you this, because I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, and I hate to assume because you don't know how to spell, but you probably have backed a bunch of crowdfunders. You probably backed and read a bunch of them, hopefully, right? I mean, if I'm off base, tell me I'm off base.
Not a ton. I've backed 4 campaigns so far.
I mean, but I guess I'll get to my point then, is that I've read a lot of indie comics, and sometimes an issue 1 comes out swinging, and we're like, man, we're hitting this thing hard. And then issue 2 comes, and they threw everything into issue 1. And I'm like, great. I feel a little disappointed that we're not doing anything cool, or issue 1 was rather disappointing and you're charging me $20. And I'm like, I like the concept. I like the name. I like the pitch you gave me, but this was underperformed. And so what is that like for you? Because obviously I've only seen parts of issue 1, but from what I've seen, it seems interesting. I would want to give it a try to read this and see where you're going with it. But that's, I think, what's interesting is that if you're packing a lot in and you're doing 2 issues and you're saying, look, it's a 2-parter, and if this thing doesn't go any further than 2 issues, you're getting a complete story. I think there's something to be said about that. And
no,
so
I completely agree. I mean, not just crowdfunding. You'll go out and you'll buy like an image book, and issue 1 is fantastic, and then issue 2 it just gets so boring. It's like issue 1, here's all these great fighting scenes, and then issue 2 it's just talk. I write these books with that in mind, specifically avoiding the idea of having any issue that's going to be boring. I think I'm very much into the kind of older, who would you say, like the older 80s, Stalin, Dixon, those kind of writers, where every issue is, even the issues that are part of the story, is still their own story. And so you could pick up issue 2 and it'd be just as much action as issue 1. I'll probably do what Todd McFarlane in Spawn, where he has like the previously in issue 1 such and such happened, and I think that kind of frees you up to do a little bit more in the new issue, so people know what's happened, even if they didn't back issue 1, but they're still going to get a full story in issue number 2.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense. I mean, I'm a strong believer that I don't even think you need a recap, because if you're picking up, I've never picked up an issue 2 of something, right? in the middle of it, where I operate either in 4 or 6 issue arcs or issues. So I'm not going to go randomly pick up issue 5, like, oh, good, where are we in the story? Oh my God, he got shot. What the hell happened? I'm then going to go get the other 4. Or I'm going to wait till the graphic novel comes out. Or, you should say, hey, issue 7 is a jumping on point. That's when I think you have those pages. That's just my opinion, because I'm a strong believer that I'm not jumping into a series in the middle. Now, maybe it's because I haven't run a crowdfunder. Maybe it's because I'm not funding issue by issue by issue. But even still, if you're funding issue 3 on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, you're still going to offer issues 1 and 2 in some format.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know if you need that anymore in comics, but I could be wrong. But I have a very different opinion, where I get why people do it, but even if you have a blurb, like not even like if you have a paragraph explain what happened in the last issue, and then you go right into the issue, I don't think there's a problem with it, but I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary because, again, I think somebody would rather just buy issue 1. Now, if I'm jumping in on issue 7 and I don't want to read all 144 pages of 1 through 6, give me 2 paragraphs on what the hell happened, and then I'll be good. So, but I digress. I mean, I my opinions are mine, and some of them are definitely wonkier than others.
Yeah, I just because I mean, you say like hundreds of issues. It is something that I find helpful. I mean, it depends on the story and whether they're like a new jumping on point. And I probably will sell at least digital versions of prior issues. I'd like to do, as each story arc finishes up, I'd like to do the whole story arc as a bundle. So there's always, somewhere to jump in and catch up.
So I do want to, I don't want to ruin much of the story, but I do want to dive into some business stuff, because you mentioned something that actually has piqued my interest a little bit, because you said that you will offer digital always, which because I think there's value in digital, but I don't think there's collectability in digital. Does that make any sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm a big comic collector, and I think there's a lot of collectability in comics, and especially in crowdfunding. And even in your local comic shop, books are printed in a limited quantity. Sometimes there's 100,000 of that book, but it's still a limited 100,000. It's not as limited as if there's 1,000 of them. But that's what irks me about Kickstarter, is that I know people who are just constantly printing their cover A. They don't change anything. They don't deviate print runs, and that cover A doesn't have much value. And I think it's complicated, where I think people should retire covers. I think people should understand that if you're crowdfunding, I get that you want to print as many copies as you possibly can, and that you want to sell in shops, and that you want to have a bunch of variants in play. But it's nice when a book only has 150 copies. And so I'm curious how you feel, is that with your campaign, are you printing to order? Are you going to be printing an extra 100? And then once you're out of cover B or C or D or even cover A, if you print 300 of those copies, that's it. I'm not reprinting this cover A again. Because I think it's tricky, right? Because it becomes a business issue versus collectability versus protecting your customer's value. And those things can collide with each other very, very fast.
Yeah. So I will probably, depending on how many orders we get, I'll probably round up a certain amount of copies of at least cover A, and then that will probably be the full print run of cover A. So if you don't get in on however, so like let's just say it's 200. If you don't get on those first 200, then you're gonna have to get a different cover later on. I would like to, I mean, depending on how long I get to go for, I would like to do little trade paperbacks. And I write for 32 issue stories at a time, so I think it's easier to sell trade paperbacks when your stories are 32 issues or 32 pages an issue. But yeah, I mean, for me, the benefit of digital on later campaigns is specifically that it's a very low price point for people to jump in. So I don't know how many people would back the comic if it was if you had to go out and get the physical. So So we
So
have a
let's actually
digital
talk
for
about that too.
$7, and I think seven's just a very easy buy-in.
Yeah, let's actually talk about that too, because I was listening to a stream and they were talking about how in COVID, and I don't know how Europe reacted, but in America, we got a lot of money. A lot of people weren't commuting to work, so they had extra money that was going into their car or gas, and their
Mhm.
cars got less wear and tear. And certain people had really low mileage on their cars, and so they extended their leases, which means that they weren't buying a new car by 6 months or by a year. Because if you were driving 500 miles a week and now you're driving 100, your car is going to last a lot longer. And, you're spending less money on gas. And if that was the position for 2 years, all of a sudden, people had a lot more money when COVID hit. And a bunch of people were maybe buying some more comics. They were buying more physical things. There was less entertainment, but comics were still being produced. And now obviously, and then obviously in America, we got a bunch of stimulus money that came in for on a whole docket. So for a lot of different reasons. And so people got a lot of relief. And that also worked its way into, the Kickstarter positions. And now I feel money like that is leaving. And the economy, at least in America, and I think it's similar in Europe, isn't great. It's not great right now. And I don't think it's going to get better anytime soon. And so I think a lot of people are gravitating towards digital, because
Mhm.
digital might be $10, a physical copy might be 25, and they want to read it, or it might even be $8 for a digital. And so there you go. And then shipping is what, like $7 on top of that. I think for a lot of campaigns. So all of a sudden, $32 versus saying $8 with no, shipping. I could read my comic and I can afford $8. $8 is a cup of coffee at Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I'm curious what your thoughts are on that, because that was the point of these guys in their stream, is saying a lot of people are gravitating towards digital because they want to read comics, but they can't afford physical copies anymore because of the economy, and they can buy 4 digitals or 1 physical. Is what it comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically my thinking. I approach a lot of, everything from the story to the campaign as if I was a customer as well. And so my first thought was, if I found someone's first book, and I would probably look for the cheapest option. Because if it's someone's first campaign, you kind of think, well, if I spend the amount of a cup of coffee and, I don't love the book, you will love the book. But, let's just say you kind of think of it that way.
You will like the book and you will appreciate it. It'll be your favorite book.
Yeah, but I just kind of think about it because, as I said before, I have backed campaigns in the past. A lot of the time, the reason I don't back a campaign is I look at it and it'll be, 25 for the book, 25 for shipping, and I just can't do it. And a lot of the time, I'll think, if only there was a digital copy that I could just, it would be so much easier. And so, yeah, that's basically the thought behind the digital. It's very, and also it's very easy to convince a stranger to, here's a comic book, $7. You don't have to wait around for shipping. You'll just get it in the, you'll just get a PDF and email. I think that's a much easier, as I said, for a first campaign, that's just so much easier for everyone.
No. I mean, I have a different viewpoint. I'm a variant collector, so a lot of
Yeah.
the time I'll back somebody's first campaign because I'm like, oh man, you got this really cool variant on it, and there you go. But again, that's why I back certain things. But and I'm not a big digital backer, but I'm
Mhm.
also a collector. I'm also a reseller, but I'm also very, very, very selective. And so I am very selective and very tactful on who I back, when I back, how I back, and what I'm engaging with, because I have to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very complicated thing. And I've been burned on campaigns, and there's people who I like a lot, but I'm not backing their campaign right now because I just don't see the value there.
Mhm.
And I always think a digital copy is going to be available for me anyway at any given point. And so if I want to read a book, there's always a way for me to get a digital copy later on. So I feel no impetus to get a lot of people's comics. And honestly, I'm just selective. I like a certain type of book. I like a certain type of movie, and I know who I am exactly.
Yeah, I'm the
So
same way.
it's I hate to say this, but like, but also I become selective because of that. And it is very rare that I will back a Kickstarter that is out of my repertoire, for lack of a better word. Um, and it's just the cost of doing business. So, I'm perfectly fine with that. But I get it. I get it on risk. I mean, there's plenty of people who say, "Look, I just want to read comics. Give me
Mhm.
$5 digital all day." There's plenty of people like that. And so I'm not here to knock, but I have a different view. And that's again for me what works for me, but also I'm a different customer completely. But I think because I'm interviewing a guest after you, and his book is only in digital, and that's why this is interesting. Is that I'm a crypto guy, right? So I love digital assets, and
Mhm.
I'm also a stock guy, and that in many ways, obviously, stocks represent physical goods sometimes, or physical companies, or companies that provide service and things of that nature. But it is a digital financial product at the moment, and so I get the digital side completely.
Yeah.
But I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting, and it's also the fact that I think you're international too is an issue, especially because in the US, to ship a book to Australia or Canada is very expensive.
So I should actually mention we have a flat shipping rate, which is going to be about $10 for everyone. So the book itself, I think, it's 32 pages. I think it's on the kind of mid cheaper because it's about $15 for 32 pages. So I mean, it is kind of hard to meet someone. They just assume because it's because it's international, cost an arm and a leg to ship. So yeah, I tried keeping the book on the lower price point and the shipping on the lower end of the scale as well.
So let's actually talk about that too. What is it like finding the right price point? Because I run an eBay business, and what I'm learning is that there's a price point that everything will move at
Hmm.
perfectly. So there's certain books that will move at $45 all day. Now I'm trying to get 55 for it. If I could get 55 and it takes an extra 2 weeks, I'm going to wait the extra 2 weeks. But ideally, I got a feeling that a lot of these books move around $45 for a certain type of sector of a book, and a certain publisher's book moves around that price point. So what is that like? Because you don't want to give the book away for free, but you don't want to overshoot either. But you also don't want to leave money on the table, where if you can get 18 for it and people will still back it at 18, you obviously want to try to get 18. And so
Hmm.
what is that like for you? Because I think it is a massive struggle that people on Indiegogo and Kickstarter and Zoop and all these platforms don't really know what price point it's going to be moving at. Or is it the fact that, hey, these are my costs. This is what it's going to cost me to print it. And this is what I need to pay my artist and print it, and then recoup some of my money, if not all my money. Because that could also just be saying, look, at 15, I break even. That could be why you set it at that price point, or you make $2, which then helps mitigate risk somewhere else in this campaign. So it could very well be that too.
So my thinking was, I kind of did the calculation of how much would it cost to finish the book and then print it. Then I took away how much I would be willing to put of my own money into that. So I took that off the amount we need to raise. Then I just kind of did some calculations and thought about what would be reasonable for a physical copy. Looked at other campaigns and looked at just kind of assess the market. And then digital was just under about half of what the physical book would be. So I thought was a reasonable calculation.
It makes sense. I mean, again, as me running my business, I look at how much it costs me. I look
Mhm.
at what eBay is going to take out of it, because I sell almost exclusively on eBay. I'm coming to Whatnot. They take a very similar position that eBay takes. So I look at that, And I say, cool, how much money do I want to make in profit and what is everybody else charging? And also then, because some of these books are numbered, if I have a bunch of low numbers, I might add a $3 or $4 premium if I have book number 1 or 2 or 4. If I have book number 50 or I sell numbered cards, if I have a lower numbered card, I'm going to maybe ask another $1 or $2 more because it's rare, because it's the first off the print run. If I have a number 1 of a card, I'm going to ask more than if I have a number 500 and it's a 500 print run.
Yeah.
Because I think I mean, I just got a card that's the last off the print run, and I got number 4 of the same batch. So I got 10 of that. So if I'm to sell number 4, I'm going to ask $5 more than if I'm to sell number 269. Because I think, while 269 at 269 is cool, I do think that card is worth a little bit less. So, I get it from a business standpoint. I absolutely get it, because you want to make money. And obviously, I don't think this is your day job either. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is something that you enjoy doing, and you enjoy it as a hobby that you want to basically fund itself. Is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I don't mind putting. The hope is that the longer it goes, the more momentum you build, the less risk you have to put into it. And if you're doing it by like issue 10, then the campaign should be funding itself. And but yeah, I mean, it's a side gig, but it's something that I'm really passionate about as well.
And then obviously I want to back out of that, and I do want to talk about why Indiegogo versus Kickstarter, because some people love Indiegogo, some people hate Indiegogo, some people think Indiegogo shadow bans people, some people think Indiegogo sucks. I mean, I'm a Kickstarter person. I really, really enjoy Kickstarter. I think that your project would do perfectly fine on Kickstarter, unless there's another reason why you're not on Kickstarter. But I think Kickstarter is great. I think Fund My Indie or Fund My Comic by Luke Stone is cool. I think Zoop's a fascinating platform. And so I'm curious why you chose Indiegogo versus any other platform, because I mean, I don't know if it's a preference. I don't know if it's just where you feel comfortable or where you just started.
No, I mean, it was basically just kind of sort of imperfect market research. A lot of people, you say, where would everyone be happy buying it from? And a lot of other creators seem to prefer Indiegogo, and a lot of backers seem to prefer Indiegogo. So it just it just made the most sense to me, and it's pretty easy to set up and use.
So what would you be against doing this on Kickstarter?
No, I'd be happy to do it on Kickstarter.
I mean, is that also in the cards? Because I think right now, and I'm going to tell you what I've seen. You still got a lot of time left, and I think I share this out, and hopefully I'm going to get you some backers in the process. But you have a lot of time to fund on Indiegogo, but I think on Kickstarter you would have an easier time funding. I really do. I think there's more traffic, and I think that you just being on Kickstarter, and I think Kickstarter has more organic traffic. I could be wrong. I also think Kickstarter's platform is a little bit cleaner than Indiegogo's. I also think people prefer, to some degree, of paying later on Kickstarter, because especially because the one question everybody should really ask their backers is, when is their credit card cycle up? That's when people should really ask their backers. Because if you end the day after somebody's credit card cycles up, that means that they don't have 30 days to pay. They might have 60. And that's a game changer. When people have more time to pay something, that changes the game in so many ways. But I do think that, you doing this on Kickstarter, I think you will have better results, especially if you fund on Indiegogo and then you set your goal at 500 on Kickstarter. You're going to fund very quickly on Kickstarter, in my opinion.
All right, I'll keep that in mind. Yeah, I mean, it will depend on sort of where we are in, a week or two. If we don't make it, then I might give it a go through Kickstarter.
I think especially if you're looking at this, because if you still need to finish the book, it's a little bit different. If you have the money and you're only trying to print your book, Kickstarter is the way to do it. 500 Kickstarter, and whatever you do, you handle it, and then maybe you have to pump in another 500, and you have to slowly mitigate your costs over 10 bucks. Is that's how a lot of businesses start anyway. A lot of businesses start with debt, and then they slowly mitigate and get rid of debt, or they figure out ways how to service debt. I know because I did that. It's not fun. It's not fun. It's fun when it works. It's fun when you start servicing your debt and you get rid of your debt in your business. It's a blast. It's not fun when you first start out because people look at you and you're like, oh my God, I can't sleep. And then your hair goes gray. You think this hair just naturally was gray, guys? No, this is 10 years. 10 years. I used to have nice brown hair. And now, it's brown and gray. And I'm only 31. It's terrible. It's just terrible. I have to get a haircut because when I get a haircut, the gray is like hidden in the military cut. So, but my beard is perfectly fine. It's beautiful. It's all brown. There's no gray in my beard. So we know my beard isn't stressed out. It's just my hair near my brain. But I digress. This is not about me and my hair. It's very upsetting. But that's what I think of your book. I think you would do better on Kickstarter. I really do.
Yeah, I'll give it a shot.
But I want to back out of your book, and I want to talk about comics as a whole because I am curious because I obviously have a very different perspective of buying and selling books on eBay. I'm doing my first Whatnot show on Friday. I'm very excited for that. I don't know how that's going to go, but link is in one of the descriptions somewhere, guys. But I am curious where you see the industry going because a lot has changed in the last 3 years, the last 5 years, and the last 10. In I think positive ways and in negative ways. And as somebody who is a creator in the industry, you might see things very differently than I do.
Yeah, I think so as far as like the big two go, I think the real problem, and some people may disagree with me, but I think the problem is too much centralization. All the books kind of, it's not that all the books are the same, it's that all the books are kind of anchored down to the same, the same kind of events and the same tones. If you're, you know what I mean? If you're reading one book, you're kind of getting the sense of what a lot of the other books are like as well. And I think that having more difference between the books, maybe going back to more, different genres like horror and that kind of thing would
let me pitch you my idea for DC. And I'm curious. So my idea for DC, the movie, the cinematic DC universe, would be to have Green Lantern and some other characters in one world and have their own movies. And then eventually those maybe 9 or 10 characters cross over into an event. So you have that, but that's not the Justice League. And the Justice League and Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Blue Beetle, they're in this world, in this bubble over here, and they have no fucking idea what's going on. They have an idea what's going on with Green Lantern. They're like, not our problem. And so they all have their own movies, and then Wonder Woman and Batman have a movie together, and Superman joins them in the triumvirate. Then somebody else joins them, and then Blue Beetle has his own thing. And like, hey, what's up, Batman? And then he pieces out of the Batman movie and jumps into his movie. And so then you have that going on. And then you have a third one of something else. And then eventually they've had all these mini crossovers in their own little bubbles over here, here. And there's like 3 of them. And then finally there's a massive event and we get a 4-part movie that combines all this together, and then it's like a big bang, and then out of the end of that, it breaks those 3 bubbles, and it creates another 3 that mixes up all the characters again. So now in bubble 1 over here, which used to be Green Lantern and his bunch of fellow superheroes, you have Green Lantern, Batman, and Superman there, but then Wonder Woman is over here with another bunch of characters that she wasn't with, and then you basically disgorge them again, and then 10 movies later, you bring them back in and you do it again. And you have a 4-part movie, and all of a sudden, and you're basically shaking it up. And that's my proposal for DC. I think it would destroy Marvel. because I think it would do the exact opposite of what Marvel did, which is centralization and tower building is what I call what Marvel did. Brilliant by Marvel, but it's too tower stagnant.
Yeah, I mean, you really want more kind of difference of tone, difference of style. You know, if you're watching a Batman movie, it shouldn't feel even remotely the same as a Superman movie. One of them should be.
See, I don't even have that. Sorry to cut you off. If you have Green Lantern legitly 50 million light years away, you can have whatever tone you want, and it doesn't interfere. That's the problem in comics, is that I can't have a Captain America thing doing what he's doing and having Iron Man having a crisis in his life and basically the white Iron Man suit being like altruistic. And like that affects Captain America, even though he's in New York and Iron Man's in someplace else. It affects Captain America because it sets the whole tone in many ways for the Avengers and the Marvel universe in the comics. But if you broke them up in the way that I described the DC movies, if you have something so far away, the tone can be broken. And that's my theory for DC. And I think it could work with DC. I don't know if it could work with Marvel, especially in the movie universe. It will work wonders in the movie universe. In the comics, it's a little bit harder, but I still think it could be done. But you have to separate, and you have to create separation where they know what's going on. Batman knows what's going on with Hal Jordan, but he's 50 million light years away. So Batman can't be like, I need to help Hal Jordan out. Let me get him a little bat ship. It's not going to work. And so it eliminates the issue of having every superhero having the same tone. And that's my idea. And if DC wants to hire me, oh my God, I will write Teen Titans West for free. I will take over publishing, and I will contribute, and I will write Teen Titans West, and it will be the greatest Teen Titans story ever. They'll be in San Francisco, and oh my God, I'm gonna get so many celebrities into that book. And yes, I'm gonna get Kim Kardashian in that book. It's gonna be fantastic. She's gonna get a tour of Titans Tower. I'm so excited for it. I have the script ready, guys. It's gonna be amazing. Call me, DC. I'm ready. But sorry, this is supposed to be about you, not me. I'm sorry.
I was just thinking. I think with DC and Marvel, the great thing about the Bronze Age was like how many different things were going on. Because it's like when you think of the Bronze Age, you really think of like monsters and horror, but at the same time, you had like comedy, you know, with Howard the Duck and that kind of thing. You had like just very traditional, sci-fi superhero stuff going on, like the Justice League and the X-Men. And it's one of the easiest eras of comics to read because everything's just so different from itself. You can pick up one run. There'll probably be some tie-ins, but for the most part, you can just read straight through Man-Thing. You can just read straight through, Spider-Man. You can just read straight through X-Men, and it's just very simple and easy. And those are the kinds of books that I think people are going back to.
Yeah, no, I had Joe Brush on from Zenoscope, and what he was saying is that also it used to be that you could pick up a comic, and when you picked up a Spider-Man, it was one issue. You got a whole story in that issue. Maybe you needed a two-parter every once in a while, but you didn't need 12 issues, and you didn't need the event. And I mean, I'm trying to think of an event just recently that was. What was it, like something with Carnage or the Black King or Black Carnage?
I think they've done like 3 Carnage events in the last few years. They're just milking that.
Yeah, so it was like Black King or Black Bishop or something like that.
King and Black.
King and Black, thank you. So again, wasn't there legitly the main one, and then wasn't there another like 40 tie-in issues? And you needed a good 20 of them to kind of get the full picture. Obviously, if you read the main one, you would have been relatively fine. But there was stuff you were missing in the main one that were in some other obscure things. And it's kind of like, if you're like, man, I'm really digging this and I'm a Marvel guy, but like, I can't be spending in the next 3 months $120 every single month on Marvel. Like, it's a little pricey. And I think that's part of the issue is
Mm-hmm.
that comics right now are $4 or $5. And when you do when you do a main line for 6 months and then you have another 10 tie-ins and that's $40, that's $400 plus these 6 issues or 7 issues over 7 months. You're looking at $450.
Yeah, and it's a vicious cycle as well, because the more you do that, the more you price people out, and the more you price people out, the more you have to raise prices again. So, yeah.
I this is why I hate events. I hate events, and it's almost cheaper to go and buy a hardcover graphic novel of it. Like Blackest Night. I own all of Blackest Night. I own the prequel, the Blackest Night, the 2 prequels, all of Blackest Night, and then the 3 Brightest Days.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my point, is that it's cheaper in many ways to buy the whole thing like that. And those books were like $30 a pop, and they're great. They're absolutely fantastic, and they are amazing, and that's how I feel. So again, it is what it is. But so we kind of touched upon that. But where do you see comics going? Because as a creator and as a fan, I think that you might now you have an opinion. Obviously, it's a good way to put it.
I mean, it really depends on the, if you're talking about like mainstream comics, I think it kind of depends on the company. I think a lot of the indie publishers are really kind of embracing what they know sells. So if you look at like IDW, they're really embracing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We've had I think they're going on to like the 3rd Last Ronin miniseries now. So I think a lot of the smaller ones do know what's gonna keep them going. I think for the big 2, I would like to see management change at the big 2, just so someone comes in, they shake things up, and they do something new that gets people coming back and hopefully would bring down the price. I mean, the annoying thing about the price at the moment is when I started collecting, like seriously collecting comics, I was like, I don't think I'll ever buy an omnibus because it's so expensive. Nowadays, when I go into a comic shop, I'm like, man, that omnibus looks cheap. So it's kind of wild how things have changed.
Yeah, see, I like buying omnibuses. I like buying big hardbound hardcover books.
Yeah.
I mean, I just bought Berserk, and I'm slowly buying Berserk in hardcover manga by Dark Horse. It's a great book. It makes sense. It's $50 for 3 volumes.
Yeah.
And sure, the regular volumes are $10-12. The omnibus in a better condition that's going to last forever is what, $14 more. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a great series, and if I want it on my bookshelf and I want it for the next 40 years, a hardcover, book is going to last forever.
Yeah.
And so I'm at that stage as a person now. But again, I don't want to buy everything. I don't. But I have a slightly different opinion where I think DC and Marvel have said we don't give a fuck about comics because, and I get attacked for this. They've made a business decision saying the movies, the merchandise, and the video games is where the money's at, and DC and Marvel and their parent companies are the smartest companies in the world. And people, what I think people forget is that I'm not saying their product is good. Their product is subpar, sometimes great, but for the most part, it's average, subpar.
Mm-hmm.
What they've done is that they've realized where the money's at. And it's in video games, movies, and merchandise. And therefore, people assume if a company is a good company, that their product is good. No. A good company is a company that's making money and making and selling you what you want or what you think you need. That's a good company.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're good as in they're doing altruistic things. It just means that they are a good company in as far as business wise.
Yeah.
What I think with the indies is that I think the indies have realized that DC and Marvel are producing bad product and product that people don't want, and that I think indies have stepped up. But I think the indies have a problem where getting price point down is very complicated. And also everybody else is doing the exact same thing. So you got to really hustle your buck.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now, I don't know about you, but I can name 20 different fantastic products that are all competing against each other. And you put all of them in front of me and you said, Andrew, pick one. I couldn't go wrong with the 20. I couldn't go wrong with the 20 that I picked. And they're all different and they're all top quality products.
Yeah.
And but that's just it. If you gave me $20, say, Andrew, pick one, here's $20, pick one. That's all you can do. It's like legitimately throwing a dart at the table. That's what it's like. I'm sure. I think you probably could be in a similar situation.
Yeah. I mean, part of my theory for the big two is that they're going to become a lot more dependent on reprints. Putting out like the classics just over, like, such and such a movie is coming out, and here's the story that ties in with it, or this is the story that the movie is based on. Come by that,
or a video game, or they want to have a big merch print or a merch thing where they want to sell 1 million Batman shirts. Cool, let's do a Batman 27 on Batman Day, right?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. Oh man, Superman is 85. Happy birthday, Superman. Let's reprint Action 1 in a fun way. Or, the Action 1000, right? That was a reprint, right? With a bunch of interview stuff in there. But they sold a lot of copies of that book. But that wasn't a new product. It was a great product. It's a fun product. I have a lot of them. It made me some serious money. But it wasn't a new product. So I digress.
Yeah, I do think that the companies will become more aware of where the customer base is. And I mean, that's my hope anyway, is that at the very least, through looking at what sells in the reprints, they'll kind of look at it and be like, oh, the guy who made this, really popular trade paperback, he's still around. We should put him on Batman or something like that. That would be my hope for where the companies go anyway.
Well, I hate to break it to you, I'm in charge. No, I don't know what they're gonna do. I think they're gonna fix their problem eventually, because I'm a capitalist, and I think what's gonna happen is that they're gonna get to a point where they're gonna fix their problem. Now, what might wind up happening is that they might license out Batman to Dynamite, which would be awesome. That would be awesome. Think about this, right? What if DC licensed Green Lantern to Marvel? So you can't do anything with Green Lantern in the Marvel universe, but Marvel would publish DC. I don't think that's off the table. If I was in charge of DC, I would license out characters like that, because giving it to Dynamite and having them do Green Lantern or even some obscure characters, that are the B team, for lack of a better word, it could be interesting. Dynamite doing Teen Titans, that could be fascinating. Image doing Teen Titans could be interesting. IDW doing, Young Justice, that could be cool. So all of a sudden, you can have some of the best people, because these companies would be dependent on licensing, which means that they'd be paying DC like $100,000 or $500,000, and they would want to make their money back. So they would want to do things that would actually sell the book.
That's actually been kind of my fault with a lot of the characters you don't really see anymore. Like Kazar or Commandy or Blue Devil or someone like that, where it's like, all right, let's be honest, we're not really doing anything with this character. He's not in print. He's not going to be in print. So we might as well just make money off of licensing for a little bit, or even licensing out to crowdfunders. I mean, you got like Sean Gordon Murphy did Zorro, and he did that through a license. And so, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the big two were like, if someone wants to pay us such and such amount to do a Lobo graphic novel or something like that.
I would even that would be good. I would take a different approach. If I was DC, I would do an equity deal. Because if you have Sean Gordon Murphy doing something and he raised a lot of money on it, do you know how much money he raised? I think he did over 100,000 or pretty close to it, right?
I think so, yeah.
So what would it be like if they said, cool, we'll make you a deal where, you get to do it. We get 20% of what you raise after expenses, and we get the ability to distribute it. Now, after we get first distribute rights for the first 3 years. So you're going to get paid for it. You get a piece of that distribution, but we get the ability that when we bring this out into the direct market, we get first dibs on it. So you don't have the ability to shop it around, and that's our 20% equity stake, is that we get the ability to print all this stuff, and we're going to bring it to Barnes & Nobles, Amazon, all the comic shops through Diamond. We get the ability to do that, and you're going to get 7% as a royalty on the distribution end, but you're not paying us anything, but we get the rights to do it, and maybe they get a piece of what he raises as well. That to me is what DC should do, and Marvel should do it too, and IDW should do it. Honestly, with Turtles, I mean, you get the right team behind it. I mean, you could do a lot of money, I mean,
I'd look at Alex Ross doing a Fantastic Four Full Circle and just how really successful that was, and go for something like that.
Yeah, no, I think it'd be fascinating. I think it would be interesting, and I actually, I mean, I didn't even think about it. What you suggested, actually, that's really smart. It's really smart. Licensing out equity, whatever they're going to do, and because again, what if J. Scott Campbell did a one shot of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and he drew the whole thing? I mean, come on, tell me that wouldn't do $1 million? Easy, all day, everybody. That's what somebody should really do. That's what IDW should do. I think if J. Scott Campbell did a one-shot Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle book and he drew the whole thing, I think you're talking $1 million to $3 million. Easy. Bunch of variants, bunch of sign books, a bunch of CGC options, a bunch of really cool turtle stuff, a turtle commission for $10K or $15K. J. Scott Campbell, you don't think that's not going to sell out? Oh my God! You don't think bringing Kevin Eastman, bringing Peter Lard onto that thing for signings? Oh, you're gonna do so much money. That it would be sick. What would happen? You'd have like 30 variants. It would be amazing. But again, I digress. But we've been speaking for a little bit over an hour, almost an hour 15. I know it's late where you're at. And obviously you got a bunch of rewards on the Indiegogo. I think people should check that out. I got the link in the description up above. But I do want to give you a chance to self-promote yourself. So where can people find you, bother you, hit you up, disturb you, all that stuff? Check out the campaign and everything in between.
So generally, if you go to social media and you just type in Unbreakable Argonauts, you'll probably find me. You can find me on Twitter at ashwriting97. I think I have Instagram. I have a YouTube channel, which is Argoverse Comics, where I sometimes host other creators, and we talk about comics on there. Hoping to get back to doing that soon. Unbreakable Argonauts over on Indiegogo. It's cheap, easy, and you're absolutely gonna love it.
And then I've been saying it. I'm going to keep saying it. You got to support indie comics. What that means is that when people have campaigns, you should go ahead and support those campaigns, as well as follow them on social media. Also sharing it out the campaign, telling people about it. Sharing this interview out is helpful. And anything else of that nature goes a long way. And interacting with people on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff, really, really helpful, and definitely helps to spread the word. And then as far as I'm concerned, I am Pop Anime Comics on Twitter, Pop Anime Comics on Instagram, Pop Anime Comics on Facebook. I also have a Pop Anime Comics YouTube channel where you can check out a bunch of content. I got 1,400 videos, a lot of shorts, a lot of micro content, a lot of interviews, almost 800, I think now, around that number. So there is something for everybody there, from voice actors to people in cosplay, wrestlers, obviously comic creators, and some authors and some other interesting individuals who you will find to be fascinating. There is something for everyone there, and you have a blast exploring. And again, it's entertainment, and I can't promise you'll get smarter, but you will be entertained. I also run an eBay store called Pop Anime Comics Collectibles right here. So if you're looking for comics and collectibles, come shop with us on eBay. It's Pop Anime Comics Collectibles. So you type in Pop Anime Comics, you probably will find me on eBay. And because I tend to do fun stuff, this book right here, I have all 15 of those books in holofoil. So I do control that book, and there's other books that I do completely control. I will say this very nicely. In about 2 weeks, those books are only going to be sold on my Whatnot, which is now in the comment section down below. That link, which is my first Whatnot, is this Friday. So I will only be selling those books on my Whatnot after 2 weeks from now. So if you would like to buy them from eBay, there you go. And also I will be raising the price up on Whatnot in 2 weeks. So, and this week I'm releasing 2. Next week I'm probably going to only release 2. And then I got a few others. I got a Starfire coming in. I also have this one right here, Burissa in holofoil. I have all 15 of those as well. And I'm waiting on that one. And I got Starfire coming in, and I have a few Shikaris that are also coming in that I control all 10 on. So again, I do carry a lot of books, and I have 10 Rogue, the Tushy shot of her from Mount Olympus coming in as well. I have 10 of those. There's 25 of those, and I got a lot of other stuff coming in. So, you know, you never know what's going to come into my store, and you never know what's going to come on Whatnot. I'm very excited for that stream. This week, by the way, is Shikari, Taylor Swift, and Mirko, who is this character. So yes, I am a Swiftie, and I have no problem admitting it. She's absolutely fantastic. But again, there's a lot of good stuff coming into my Whatnot store, and I'm bringing the smoke, guys. So Friday night, 9 o'clock, definitely come stop by. You don't have to buy anything. You can watch me. We're going to have a good time for about 20, 30 minutes Friday night. And then the week after that is Anime Night Mount Olympus, and that's some fun stuff. So click the link, and you can actually see what you can buy, and I might have a few surprises for everybody. So that's everything that I got, and I'm going to give you the final word.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. As I said before, just Unbreakable Argonauts over on Indiegogo, aimed at, you know, if you love Golden Age comics, you're absolutely going to love it. And thanks for having me on again.
Oh, no, thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. Obviously, I appreciate the Twitter following, and you know, I was happy to have you on. I'm happy to have you on anytime, and I believe you said it perfectly. So I don't want to take any of your thunder, everybody. And that is a wrap.